Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And today, my guest is Jon Rennie, and John has just written a new book, and he is also the CEO of. Um, he is the CEO of Peak Demand, which provides components for the utility industry. But we're going to start off talking about his book. And I'm going to probably just make him kind of tell me how the book relates to running his company, because those things usually do go hand in hand. So instead of me yammering on about John, why don't we bring him on and start the conversation? Hey, John, how are you today?
I'm great, Josh. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. So you came out of the nuclear submarine world.
Yeah, yes. So I started my career right out of college in the Navy. I was an officer on the USS Tennessee, a nuclear submarine, and this was at the during the end of the Cold War, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth in leadership. And then when I left the military, I spent 22 years in corporate America. I ran 8 different manufacturing plants during that time, and then about 6 years ago, I started my own company, my own manufacturing company, Peak Demand, which you mentioned. Um, yeah, I just decided to leave them, do it on my own. So that's what I've been doing the last 6 years. And so I run a manufacturing plant that makes products for electric utilities.
So did you buy the plant, or did you start it from scratch?
No, we started it from scratch, from the ground up. We developed the products, we created the market, the brand, what have you. Yeah, right from the start. And I had been in this industry for a long time, so I was very familiar with the products and the customers, and so it's funny because a lot of young people start companies, but I think in some cases it's better to have that you have some real world experiences, because it certainly made it a lot easier when we got our business started, because we kind of knew what to do and what the customer pain points were, and so it made it a lot easier for the startup of this company.
So I'm going to assume that manufacturing companies are pretty expensive to start.
They are, yes. Yeah.
So how did you finance it? That's my then we'll get to talk about what you want to talk about. I'm just curious
Sure.
about that.
Sure. We did find a partner that was interested in our vision for creating this manufacturing plant. It was actually an offshore partner originally, and so he was very interested in doing this project and building this company up. And eventually, we bought him out. So he helped us get this thing started, and then we were able to buy him out and run it on our own now.
Okay, cool. So that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I find is that as you get a little bit older and you start businesses, you do have that real world experience, and you've made enough mistakes along the way that you're not likely to make the stupid mistakes that people make just because they're young, like I did.
Yes. Well, and the other thing is you have connections, right? So I think that really helped me, again, get finance for this, build a customer base, build a brand. I had connections, I knew people. So I think that's very helpful too. So, for those who are listening and thinking I'm too old to start a business, I don't necessarily think so. I think you come with a lot of experience, which helps the learning curve a lot. So.
Yeah, and it also depends on the type of business, and there's a whole bunch of variables to go into that. But I think you're basically right about that. So let's talk about nuclear submarines, leadership skills, and what you learned in the Navy that you use every day in your company.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't really think that I was any unique kind of leader when I was in corporate. But the last maybe 10, 15 years, I've really felt like the training I received, the experiences I had on a submarine were really unique and really special. And it really affected how I led and how I treated people. On a submarine at sea, it's very interesting. Even the most junior sailor can make a mistake and would cause all of us to perish, right? So for us to be able to complete our mission and come home safely, we relied on everybody. So there was a shared accountability and a shared vulnerability. What I learned, through my years in corporate, is that there wasn't that same shared experience in a lot of companies. If things went poorly, the leader typically got promoted and the people got let go. And the leader was always sort of protected from the consequences of actions or even the economy or things that change. So we were never really in it together, right? And departments would fight between each other. Marketing would fight with engineering. Engineering would fight with sales, and we were never in it together. So um, as a general manager, as a vice president in corporations, I was always trying to bring people together towards a common objective. I was always trying to point that the enemy being outside the four walls, not inside the four walls. And that just came from my training in the military. The enemy, in our case, on a submarine, was the seawater trying to force its way in, right? So it wasn't necessarily just the Soviets, it was the seawater, right? And so we had to work as a team to keep that seawater out. And we were in it together to do that. And the other unique thing about a submarine is that we would lock the hatch and we'd be gone for 3 months at a time with 155 of the same exact people for 3 months straight. So you learn to get along with people that you had differences with, and that you had opposing views, or you came from a different part of the country or a different religion. You learn to get along with people that had a lot of differences than you had. And so I think, my years in corporate, that helped me get along with people that I had, with difficult people that I had, a rival of vice presidents, and getting along with bosses that didn't have the right personality. But we learned to get along with people that we had disagreements with, and I think that always came into how I ran businesses, and it's certainly how I run businesses today. So it's about all of us being together in trying to achieve the goals of the business. So the name of the book is All in the Same Boat. And literally that's the way I run my business, is that we're all in it together to achieve a common goal. No one is more important than anyone else to achieve our mission.
So, do you consider yourself your company values led?
I would say so, because I think, our vision is to be a different kind of supplier. So we talk about that all the time. We were formed as a result of frustration in our industry. So there was a lot of suppliers, a lot of big suppliers in our industry that treat customers like a number. They don't follow up on phone calls. They don't ship products on time. They're difficult to do business with in terms of processes and quotations. And so we went into this business with, we're going to eliminate that. We're going to be the fastest, and we're the fastest supplier in the industry. We're the quickest, we're the most responsive, and not only that, it's that we've been in this industry a long time, so we fixed a lot of the known product problems in the industry as well. So we make a better product, we ship it faster, and we're easier to do business with. So I would say those are our values: to be different and to be an alternative to the status quo in the market. And that's who we are. So I would say probably we are values based. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like that you're in action values based, but it doesn't sound like you've really sort of articulated those values with clarifying statements around them. Am I correct in that? Or am I
I
am I wrong?
I don't know what you mean by that. So
Well, how you go into a place and people say, well, here are our values. Like it could be rights and respect. And that means rights and respect would mean that we treat our employees and stakeholders with respect, and we expect you to treat us with respect. That's one of our values.
oh yeah,
So it makes,
yeah, no, we do actually have we have two things. We have, one is our expectations, and then the
yeah.
other thing is our who we are as a company. And so in one of those values is, treat people with respect. But the other one is interesting, is that we celebrate the people that use our product. So in our case, it's the linemen. So we celebrate the linemen, and we support the people that physically use our product, not necessarily the companies, but the people that actually use the product. So yeah, I think we definitely have those, and they're, we talk about them all the time. They're posted on the wall, but yeah. So I think the big thing for us is we live our vision, and I think that's really important. One of the things I see with big companies, corporate, is they create a mission and vision statement, and it sits in a dusty binder on a shelf someplace, and no one knows what it means. So we boil our vision down to 4 words. Being a different kind of supplier. We talk about that every day in our morning stand-up meetings. What does that mean to be a different kind of supplier? And that's something we talk about.
Okay, so you do a morning stand-up meeting. What happens at those morning stand-up meetings, and why are they important for you to do that?
So it comes right down to, what I talk about in my leadership books is that leadership is a people business, right? And when I mean by that is that our businesses, our plans, everything we want to do is nothing without the people to make it happen, right? And so the morning meetings are connection. So we connect with everybody, we look everybody in the eye, we can see who's there, right? And then by that connection, you see what kind of mood people are in, right? I know my people well enough to see who's in a good mood, who's not in a good mood, who's late, who's frantic, who's whatever. But we all get together, and then we say, what are we going to do today? What's happening today? So what shipments are coming in? What shipments have to go out? What's our priority? And then we have a discussion around the room with anything that needs to be brought up that others need to know about. So is there anything happening today that others need to know about? And it's a great chance for us to connect, bring up issues, and make sure people are aware of everything that's going on that day. And I think some people listening to this would say, well, that's not that important, right? You can do that with an email. You can do this with a whatever. But I think it's really important to have those personal connections, and everybody gets on the same page on the first part of the day, so that we kind of all go in the same direction. And we're not surprised by a truck that shows up, or a shipment that's late, or whatever. We all are aware of what has to happen that day. And I think it really helps us be on the same page. And I think that's really important.
So how many folks work in your company, Jon?
We have 10 in the office here, 10
Okay.
employees in the office, and then we have the factory employees as well. So, and that factory employees kind of, it grows and it shrinks based on the demand.
So how many folks are in your factory?
Right now, there's just 5. So
okay.
We're a little slow. We're waiting on parts right now. So
you and the rest of the world.
Yeah. So we, what's neat about it is we actually, the office people actually work on the shop too. So when we get busy, we all kind of we work together. So we're a small company, so we all work together towards whatever we're trying to do. So
yeah, well, that's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
So what other stuff did you take from the Navy? By the way, I believe that the military is probably among the best leadership trainers in the world. My son's a medic in the he was in the 160th. He's now over in the National Guard training emergency medical people around the West Coast. But I had the opportunity to go out and visit him and go visit him at work. And I was really, really unbelievably impressed with what a great leader he had become. And this was a kid who was just obnoxious as a teenager.
Yeah. As was I. So
I've learned a great deal of respect for leadership training that the military does. And what other kind of lessons did you take from your time in the Navy and bring it into your company?
Well, it's interesting. The one thing that was very unique, especially in the submarine community, is that you had to get qualified. So before you were trusted to a duty station, you had to prove that you were capable in that duty station. And so there was a qualification process. So, and that's something that is really different than you see in businesses, right? So how do you move up in a company? Well, sometimes it's based on your performance, sometimes it's based on your skills, sometimes it's based on your knowledge, but there's no really set way to advance or to move up in a company. I mean, it's performance based. It's who you know. It's how you contribute. But one of the things that I definitely learned through that qualification process in the military was coming in my own career, and I just called it skill stacking. So stacking skills and talents and experiences as a young person coming into corporate America allowed me to sort of differentiate myself from the rest of the people that I worked with, and eventually got me my first manufacturing plant at 32 years old. I was running my first plant and then went on to run many more. But there was a mindset when you came on to a submarine that you, and they called you a nub, and it doesn't matter if you're an officer enlisted, you were a nub when you showed up. And that's called a non-useful body. And that meant that you were breathing the air and eating the food, right? But you didn't earn it. And there was a positive peer pressure to get qualified and to become useful on the boat. And I think I felt that same pressure when I came into corporate America. It's like, how can I be useful? How can I add value? And for me, it was about doing my job very well, learning how to do my job very well, spending time with the people that knew it really well and becoming an expert. And then, of course, volunteering and taking on assignments, that anything that came up, I was willing to go because it was one more thing I could learn how to do. So I would say that kind of mindset of continuously pushing yourself to learn and stacking up your skills certainly helped me in my career. And it's what I encourage my teams to do, is that you become more valuable to your company the more you know, the more you learn, the more experiences you have.
So how do you give your folks in your company the opportunity to learn more today?
Well, I think it's a great question, especially as those people that might be entrepreneurs listening to this conversation. Is that one of the challenges that entrepreneurs have when you start a company and you're the founder, right, is letting go of control, right? So the reason you're successful in business is because you're good at what you do, right? And we have a hard time letting go of the things that we're really good at, that make us a great company, that make us a great leader. So one of the things I try to do is to let go and give people challenging assignments where they get an opportunity to do things that are outside their comfort zone and learn from them, and having those experiences where they get to do something that they don't think that they're ready for, but you give it to them anyway. I have a young, recent college graduate that's coming up, and he's learning, and he's starting to spend some time in marketing, and I'm having him do quotation, and some of these quotations are very technical, very difficult. And I recently gave him one, and it was very difficult, and he had to do a lot of cross comparison of our competitors' products. And I said, "You're not allowed to ask me any questions. You just have to come and present when you're done." And he's like, "Well, how am I going to do that?" I said, "You're not allowed to ask questions." And what I was purposely doing was letting him try to find, how can you solve the problem if I'm not around? And that's what we need to do as entrepreneurs. We need to let our people do things without us. Because we like to have control, because we're the owners, right? We're the leaders. We have a hard time letting go of control, and our people can rely on us too much. So sometimes we just have to let go, let them do it without asking us, and learn from those experiences and become better at their roles by doing that. So it's about letting go and letting other people learn and grow.
Okay, so it's not a danger point, but it's sort of a point that you were just talking about that most employees have a really hard time with. And that's the concept of mistakes. What you have just described is you're basically inviting people to make mistakes so they can learn from them.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with that strategy? Because it's a really good one, by the way.
Well, again, going back to my Navy days, controlled failure was how they trained us. So they put us in scenarios that were outside our comfort zone, so that we would learn, and in most cases, we would fail through that process. And one of the things about failure, which is so good as a learning tool, is that it's very emotional, right? When you fail, when you miss, when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you never forget that sting of failure, because as humans, we don't like to fail. It's embarrassing. It's not a good feeling. And so we learn from that. So that was one of the things they did in the Navy, was they gave us opportunities that were outside our comfort zone, or what we felt we were capable of, so that we could learn. And we could, usually, like if I stood watch as a young officer, I was under instruction. So I had another watch stander with me that's sort of making sure I don't really screw things up, right? But they gave us enough rope and let us fail. And then we would have the conversation afterwards. Well, what did you do wrong? What happened? Why did you do it that way? And we learned from those things, and we became better at our craft. So I think failure was something that was naturally thrust on us in the Navy. And I think I just naturally find that a great teaching tool, learning tool.
So, Jon, we have time for one more thing to talk about. And I want to circle back to a word that you used right in the beginning of the podcast today, and that word is vulnerability. Can you just talk for a second or minute or two about how vulnerability fits into your life and might be a good thing to do for other business owners to think about?
Yeah, and when you hear the word vulnerable or vulnerability, you think weakness, right? Some people think weakness, but it's not weakness. It's about the ability to just say, I don't know. And being willing to listen to others and listen to other input. And let me give you the example. When I was 32 years old, I took over a manufacturing plant, my first manufacturing plant. I had employees that had been there for 30 years, right? I was a young manufacturing leader. I didn't really know um, all the answers to all the problems. And the problem was I thought I had to have all the answers, right? In the early stages. But what I learned is that if I could tap into the talent that I had and the experienced employees at that site and find out from them what's working, what's not working, what needed to be fixed, putting my ego aside and doing some serious listening to what the challenges were at that organization, then it helped me make better decisions, and it helped me build respect between myself and the employees with me. That I was listening, I was paying attention, and I knew that I didn't have the answers. I was not faking it. Some leaders try to fake it, and they say, "Well, I'm the boss, and you got to listen to me." And that's not what it's about. Vulnerability is about stepping back, letting go a little bit of your ego, and listening to others and getting input from others, and using that to help make better decisions versus trying to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, I find that vulnerability and authenticity go together hand in hand.
I do.
If you want to be seen as being authentic in your company, you better be a little bit vulnerable, because if you're perfect at everything, nobody's going to buy it, no one's going to believe you, and nobody's going to follow you.
Yeah. There's no trust when a leader appears to be faking it. There's a trust gap. Like, I don't understand this guy. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. It's when COVID hit, for example. We didn't know what was going to happen to our business, and I didn't pretend like I did know. I said, well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this is what we're going to do today. And so you do your best to respond, but I think you bring your whole self to work, and you bring your own. You tell people how you're feeling or how something makes you feel. It's not you shouldn't be a robot when you're a leader.
Yeah, no question about that. So, John, unfortunately, we are out of time. And I'm going to bet there are lots of people who want to at least read your book, if not have a conversation with you. So, how would they find your book, and how would they find you?
Yeah, everything's at jonsrennie.com. My books are there. My links to social media everything is there. It's a one-stop shop, and it's easy to find.
That's cool. And I've got two things I'd like you to do. The first is really easy, and I ask for it after every single podcast episode.
Okay.
And you know what it's going to be, is I want you to go and give us an honest rating review wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you love us, you can say, oh, this is a great podcast. If you hate us, you can say those guys stink, but I hope you don't say that, because it'll make me feel really, really, really bad. And I might cry a little bit. Not really, but if you don't like us, you can say that too. The second thing I want you to do is, I just published my second book. It's called The Sale Ready Company. It's a continuation of our journey with the Aardvark family as we go down the business parable. And this time, John is getting ready to transition out of his company. And he has tons of personal and economic challenges that come along the way. You'll find how he goes through and solves those issues, or at least thinks about solving those issues. And if you ever want to transition out of your business, and you're thinking about transitioning the ownership of your company to your kids or to your managers, this is the book for you. You can find it. It's really easy to get. You just go to www.salereadycompany.com. That's www.saleready.com. We're selling the book for half price there. It's $7.95. And we got 8 or 9 bonuses that are infographics, ebooks, and checklists that will help you implement all the things that we talk about in the book. So this is Josh Patrick. We're with Jon Rennie. You're at Cracking the Cashflow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.